for horse racing. There is an absolute need for the government to have to set proper regulation so that anybody with gambling issues, with concerns over gambling, with problem gambling, with gambling addictions, is protected, and that the industry has to be better at looking after people like that. But when the government sets out what it believes the gambling sector should look like in the white paper, it also needs to be mindful of potential consequences of any actions that are taken. So it's a really serious issue, and I say it's not just an issue for the gambling sector, it's a big issue for horse racing as well.
Well, that's really a really insightful look into gambling. I think we could almost have a separate podcast on this issue alone. But for people like me who like a flutter, some really serious food for thought there. But anyway, on a slightly lighter note, well, it may not be, depends on your answers to this question. But in time-honoured fashion, we like to ask our guests 3 things they'd like to see change in the near future for the good of racing. So what's the Lee Mottershead wish list?
Well, as you can imagine, Simon, as someone who writes a column every week, I've got a long wish list of things I might like to see happening or changing in horse racing. I thought about things like, should I say, open up all Group 1s to geldings, or should I be talking about maybe racing like all sport should be a little bit more keen to question where money comes from before they take that money. But in the end, I've settled on 3 different things. One, I'm sure will please you guys. I really do believe, and I've written this in the Racing Post before, that we need to see an expansion of syndicate ownership. We need to be able to see real people winning big races more often. I'm a huge fan of Australian racing. I've been looking to go out there quite a lot to report on horse racing over there. And one of the joys of Aussie racing is that after a big race, you will invariably see the TV channel, whether it's channel 7 or 10, switch to the picture of the running rail, where you'll see a group of people jumping up and down in glee, and they are invariably the winning owners. And those owners will be part of a big syndicate of people involved in a racehorse. And that is key, because those people will tend to be people who do normal jobs. You know, they will be plumbers, there'll be builders, there'll be electricians, there'll be dentists, there'll be doctors, there'll be nurses, there'll be people who, the people watching the television coverage will be able to see something of themselves in them. They'll be able to say that, well, you know, if he can do that, if she can do that, then maybe I could have a horse that wins the Derby at Flemington. So I would love to see more of our best horses and our best races dominated by syndicates, and that has to be the way forward. It's not healthy for flat racing or for racing in general to be dominated by a handful of hugely wealthy people. Then we need to spread the love and spread the participation in ownership for the good of the sport. So that's one thing. Second thing I'd say is I've been involved in a thing called the Quality Jump Racing Review Group recently, looking at how we can try and make British jump racing even better. I love British jump racing. I love jump racing in general, but also there's no doubt that it's been having a bit of a difficult time. The last season Cheltenham Festival, the 23-5 win for Ireland, and I think there is an acceptance that at times during the jump season we lack competition among the top horses. So I would be very hopeful that as this process continues, we can secure a reshaping of the top-end jumps programme that makes it more competitive. And I think that will involve a pruning of some of our graded weight for age races so that horses are more regularly directed into the sort of competition we saw at Ascot the other day with Shishkin meeting an Ergomen. Fans want to see competition. They don't really want to see a very good horse going around Sandown, Ascot or Cheltenham at 8-1 on, having a penalty kick mission before Cheltenham. We need to see the top jumpers more regularly racing each other before the spring festivals, and I hope we can secure that over the coming months. And the third thing I'd say is that another one of the hats I wear in racing is I'm on the Diversity in Racing Steering Group, and I firmly believe that we need to make racing more visibly diverse and inclusive. We need to try and get people who think that racing isn't welcoming to them or doesn't want them to feel that racing is open to everybody. And I would hope that we're talking about immediate changes, that over the coming months, coming year or so, we can maybe get some of racing's big players to be vocally supportive of the need to make racing more diverse and inclusive. And I say that need is both a moral requirement in the sense that we should want racing to be open to all, but also it has massive commercial implications too. There are groups of people who feel that racing is not open to them, then we are missing out on those people. Those people could be potential owners, trainers, jockeys, punters. They could be good for racing and racing could be good for them.
Great. Well, thanks very much again for your time, Lee. We really do appreciate it. Good luck with future interviews. I suppose it was a bit like poacher turned gamekeeper for you today being interviewed, but I hope you've enjoyed it. And Phil and I wish you luck in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'm a northerner. I like nattering, so it's been a pleasure.
Well, Phil, another great guest we've had on. I didn't think Lee would let us down, and he certainly didn't. And by the way, listeners, his wish list, when he talked about the growth of syndicates, he was not primed for that, I can assure you. So it was lovely words to hear, though, wasn't it, Phil?
Yeah, it certainly was. It's brilliant. I hope our listeners enjoyed listening to him as much as I did. And speaking of, and indeed to our listeners, we really appreciate all your support. We continue to grow the podcast because you're kind enough to recommend us to people. So please keep doing that. We're also on Twitter, which is at Inside the Rails. Please follow us there. And of course, if anybody's got any questions, you can message us through Twitter or you can email us at the addresses on the show notes.
Well, that just leaves me to thank co-host Phil Boyle from BG Racing, our special guest Lee Mottershead from the Racing Post, producer Callum Ronan from Callum Ronan Creative, and you, the listeners. Well, they say all roads lead to Cheltenham, but we've had some fabulous jumps races in their own right, including one of the greatest jumps races ever between Shishkin and Energumene. And they'll get to do it all again at Cheltenham in just over 6 weeks' time. This is Simon Double from Solaria Racing saying goodbye.